Hello, and welcome to today's briefing. My name is Rebecca Parrish. I am a senior at Troy University studying leadership. Today I will discuss the different styles of leadership displayed by the characters Captain Ramsey and Lieutenant Commander Hunter in the movie Crimson Tide. I kindly ask you please hold all questions and comments until the end of today's briefing. First on today's agenda, I will discuss what styles of leadership each of these two men possesses and how they display those styles. Secondly, I will discuss which of these styles I personally would emulate and why I prefer one over the other. Lastly, I will examine the followership of Russell Vossler and compare this to the four-quadrant model of followership presented by Kelly. Captain Ramsey has a very authoritarian leadership approach. An article published by the Oxford Review defines authoritarian leadership as a leader who keeps hold of as much power and authority as possible. They tend to keep all the decision-making authority to themselves and make the decisions about policies, procedures, tasks, structures, rewards, and punishments themselves. The intention is to retain control, and they usually require unquestioning obedience and compliance. Additionally, authoritarian leaders have been found to be significantly more likely to engage in a range of both overt and covert manipulative behaviors, tactics, and even intimidation to try to ensure compliance with their wishes. Our first introduction of him shows that he is almost cold, shut off, and rock hard. He presents himself in a way that even those in the Navy bow to his wants and desires. We see this displayed with his dog embarking on the submarine. We also see that his authoritarian leadership comes through when he decides to run a drill right after a fire on the submarine. Although the timing was not ideal in Lieutenant Commander Hunter's mind, Captain Ramsey ensures that it was the most appropriate time. His leadership style is that in the heat of war, there is no luxury of doing things in a calm environment. In his opinion, the time to run a drill and test the men's ability to quickly respond and work under pressure is when the pressure and chaos have already ensued. According to the Oxford Review's definition, we can also see that Captain Ramsey is an authoritarian leader when he joins the mutiny. Had he followed the rules of the Navy and remained in his quarters as he was instructed to do, the mutiny would not have occurred, or at least would have been less successful. But because of his authoritarian ways, he had to be the one in control, in command, and in charge. The rules of the Navy did not apply to him, and that is why I believe Captain Ramsey is an authoritarian leader. On the contrary, Lieutenant Commander Hunter is a transformational leader. In his book Leadership, Peter Norhaus defines transformational leadership as the process whereby a person engages with others and creates a connection that raises the level of motivation and morality in both the leader and the follower. We see this transformation occur multiple times throughout the film. One of those moments is when Lieutenant Commander Hunter disagrees with Captain Ramsey's call to run a drill right after the fire, as I previously discussed. He attempted to change the mind of Captain Ramsey and tell him that the moment was not right for calling a drill. Ultimately, Captain Ramsey won that debate and enforced his authoritative leadership to overrule Lieutenant Commander Hunter. However, the calling to transform this behavior and attitudes of the crew still wrestled in the Lieutenant Commander's conscience. At the summation of the movie, we see the full extent of the transformational leadership that Lieutenant Commander Hunter displayed when he and Captain Ramsey are standing in front of the UCMJ court. You can see the shackles fall from Captain Ramsey as he realizes that Lieutenant Commander Hunter has exactly what it takes to command a Navy submarine. And although he may differ in leadership approach, his transformational style is what convinced Captain Ramsey to give him the highest recommendation for promotion. That is why I believe Lieutenant Commander Hunter exhibits transformational leadership qualities. Reflecting on each of these leadership styles, I personally would like to consider myself a transformational leader. Although I have not had the opportunity to command a naval war submarine and can confidently say that that will not happen in my future, I would like to hope that my style of leadership is similar to that of Lieutenant Commander Hunter. I'm a leader who enjoys structure, rules, discipline, and routine. I also want to make sure that my followers are well taken care of and have the tools necessary to accomplish the task at hand. Although I do not feel that Captain Ramsey's authoritarian leadership approach is incorrect, I do not personally feel that I could be an authoritarian leader constantly. Of course, there are moments where the foot is laid down and no questions asked, but if the environment has been created where people are willing and capable to do tasks on their own, then the need for authoritarian leadership is not necessary. It is suitable for some personalities. However, it can create hostility in the hearts of followers. Whereas transformational leaders uplift followers and bring them to a place where they are respected, admired, and feel honored to be part of the bigger picture. That is why I feel I would be more like Lieutenant Commander Hunter and be a transformational leader. As I reflected on the different characters throughout the film and their followership of both Captain Ramsey and Lieutenant Commander Hunter, I kept thinking about Russell Vossler. Though a minor character for the majority of the film, he quickly became a highlighted individual of great importance. We see that he is the one who holds the knowledge of how to get the radio transmitter functioning again in order to receive an EAM, or emergency action message, with instruction to fire the nuclear weapons or withhold firing. The followership of this individual became clear when Lieutenant Commander Hunter said, "We have to know whether our order to launch has been recalled or not. The only way we're going to know is if you fix that radio. You understand?" And Vossler, though unsure of how he will fix the radio, replies simply, "Yes, sir." The transformational leadership of Lieutenant Commander Hunter is displayed once again when he transforms this unsure boy into a confident serviceman simply by referencing Star Trek. Hunter created a visual for Vossler to better conceptualize the importance of what was at stake, and he was able to get Vossler's mind off the chaos of the moment, refocus to the mission, and keep the submarine and potentially the world safe. We saw Vossler's demeanor immediately shift when Lieutenant Commander Hunter compared the mission to that of Star Trek. Although at first puzzled, Vossler quickly caught the reference and was immediately transformed and motivated. Kelly's four-quadrant model of followership includes alienated, conformist, passive, and exemplary followers. When referring to Russell Vossler and his followership of Lieutenant Commander Hunter, I would categorize Vossler first as conformist. Kelly defines this type of follower as one who actively does their task and follows orders. His response, "Yes, sir," shows us that he's willing to do what he has been commanded to do. However, he was still very unsure of himself. After the Star Trek reference, we quickly see him shift into an exemplary follower. Kelly defines this followership as characterized as being independent and innovative, and being able to understand how to work and interact with others in an organization. Although Vossler was still unsure of how he was going to fix the radio, he did not need Lieutenant Commander Hunter to constantly look over his shoulder and make sure he's doing his work. He did not need written instruction to help him achieve the goal. He completed the mission with pride and in exemplary form. And that is why I believe Russell Vossler demonstrates both conformist and exemplary followership traits. As I conclude today's briefing, I want to remind you of what all I've discussed. First, I talked about the different leadership approaches of Captain Ramsey and Lieutenant Commander Hunter. I concluded that Captain Ramsey is a leader who embodies an authoritarian approach. I then stated that Lieutenant Commander Hunter embodies a transformational leadership approach. I also discussed how I personally would consider myself to have leadership qualities more in tune with those of Lieutenant Commander Hunter, and that I prefer a transformational leadership approach over that of authoritarian. Although I do not believe that authoritarian leadership is bad, I do feel it is not my personal approach to leadership. Lastly, I discussed the followership of Russell Vossler and compared that to the four-quadrant model of followership by Kelly. I discussed how Vossler demonstrated both conformist and exemplary followership traits under the instruction of Lieutenant Commander Hunter. Thank you all for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this briefing and the different leadership and followership styles demonstrated in the movie Crimson Tide, as well as my own personal thoughts on leadership and followership. Have a blessed day. The floor is now open for questions or comments. Thank you.